what does it look like to be a good parent? What does that mean? And a few minutes ago, he led me to 1 Peter chapter 1. And I'm going to read starting at verse 5. So we're coming on a letter that Peter wrote. But he says, who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye were in heaviness or distress through manifold temptations, but that the trial or testing of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ. Everything about parenting is a testing of our faith. When they're little, making sure they breathe through the night, that they're getting enough to eat, that the people that they're around keep them safe, that they're strapped tight enough in the car seat. As they get older, making sure that we teach them what they need to know, that we are preparing them for life. Do not have teenagers, but I've been a teenager. And as I think about the teenage years and just seeing young people now, hoping that all those things that we taught or trained them and instilled in them all those years, that they'll want to practice. And then the Lord sent me over to Ephesians 6, 1, where it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. But then I skipped down to verse 5, where he says, servants, be obedient to your masters. And in verse 6, he says, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not as unto men. That's what it means to be a good parent. See, we want to put our kids in activities so that they can become great athletes and have a chance to go to college for free. We want to give them the best of educations to prove that they're smart so they can pass tests and people can say, wow, you did a really good job. But none of that pleases God. We bending over backwards, taking them everywhere, coming home. There's no time for family dinner. You're just going to eat something and go to bed. We're going to rush through this homework. We're going to do what we have to do to get through the day. But that's not working as unto the Lord. And it's interesting that verse 5 stuck out to me because our children are not our children. Yes, they're the seed of their fathers and come from the womb of their mothers, but they're not ours. They belong to God. And so if we, in raising them, are doing a reasonable service as unto him, then even as parents, we're servants. And our children are the products of our service. So what are we focused on as we're raising them? Are we focused on academics? Are we disciplining children because their grades are not up to par? But where's their heart? That child that is telling their friends and their peers that the choices they're making are not wise, they may have a C average, but when they come home, they're disciplined for what they're not doing. Instead of us recognizing the hearts that God has put in them. Or we train them up and say, you've got to go to college, you've got to achieve. But that's not what God tells us to do. Matter of fact, God tells us to do the opposite. When I flipped over to Proverbs, verse 3, he tells us to trust in him with all our heart, to lean not on our understanding, but in all our ways to acknowledge him so that he can direct our paths. But everything that we do that lines up with the culture is counterculture to what God tells us as parents. And we hold on to it so tight because it's what we experienced, and it gives us a measuring stick. Just like in psychology, if they're doing a study, you have to have a placebo. You have to have a group that's unchanged, that you can track and measure, and you can compare those you give the experimental treatment to. But see, our children aren't meant to be the experimental measure. Our children are the placebos unchanged by this world. It's the children that they might go out against who don't know who Christ is, who are dealing with difficult circumstances, who are all over the place everywhere else, that our children will have to be firm and grounded for and say, hey, listen, that's not it. I know that's wrong. Hey, listen, I love you, but when we parent them from a place of our own humanness, wanting to be able to say, I'm a good parent, then we're really putting our children in a position to please us. You are my trophy. When you get a good grade on the test, I taught you well. When you do your chores well, I beat those skills into you. When you don't get pregnant as a teenager, I did my job teaching you how to be chaste. When really, that's not true. And what happens to those children? They internalize those messages. I have to do what makes my parents proud. But where's the Lord in that? And then when they get to a point where the world is beating them up and chewing them up and spitting them out, and they come home and they say, I need help. What do we say? You know better than that. You better not be doing it. We give correction when there isn't any correction needed. In Proverbs 19, verse 18, it says, chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. I've always read this scripture and thought to myself, well, while they little, you better beat them, because when they cry, you better not get sad. I remember my mom telling me, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I'm like, yeah, unless that belt swing back and tap you on the back, it's probably not. And then I gave my oldest, a real whooping for the first time. And I said, it hurts your spirit. This is a child that I bore. That hurts me. And I made a comment to my husband the other day. I said, maybe I done got too slack. I need to get another wooden spoon, because I broke my wooden spoon, y'all. I didn't break it off on the children, but in a little melee, my wooden spoon broke. And the Lord said, do I beat you when you repeatedly do the things I've told you not to do? I was like, Lord, you beating me right now. Yes, you whooped me. He said, but no, I could send somebody to remove your finances. I could put you in a position to lose what you have. But I don't do that every time. So if that's what you're resorting to, then you're not training your children up in the way they should go. You're threatening them so they'll be obedient to what you want them to do. And that's not going to last, because one day they're not going to be under your roof. I said, well, okay. And I had to think about that, because the truth of the matter is, how many of us were prepared to be adults? We were prepared for what we thought adulthood was. We were prepared to pay bills, to maintain a roof, to not go hungry, and to go to work every day. But the emotional turmoil that comes with adulthood, when relationships fail, when people die, when you fail, when you try and it still doesn't work out, the word prepares us for those things. The word tells us, lean not on your own understanding. In Matthew, I don't know what the scripture says, let your light so shine before men that your works may glorify your Father which is in heaven. But if we're so busy trying to please our parents, then our light is not the light of the Lord. Our light is whatever it is they told us it should be. Sometimes it's dim, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the lampshade is on it, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the light bulb is going out. And when we are constantly trying to live up to the standard of other people, we lose what God placed us on this earth to do. And then trying to get back to that place, trying to get back to that, even in a word where it says, renew your mind. It's hard to renew your mind on the things of God when all you've ever done is that which pleases man. And so going back to chapter 19, verse 18, in my Bible, in the notations, it says, chasten not your son while there is hope. And where it says, let not thy soul spare, it says, do not set your heart. And for his crying, it says, to put him to death, on his destruction. And as I sat in my seat, I said, well, Lord, what do you mean? God's not saying don't discipline them. He's saying discipline them while they're young, so that they have an understanding that when you discipline them, it's for love. You're not beating them down. You're not tearing them down. And it's not saying if they don't cry, beat them harder. Because if we're honest, I think we've all had that experience too. Oh, you don't seem to be learning this lesson. So the person inflicting the discipline goes from disciplining to inflicting pain. But then again, as a parent, when a kid cries, I did my job. You understood that discipline. No, you planted a seed of discord. I think is that Ephesians also, where it says, fathers, provoke not your children to anger. There are very few ways adults can provoke children, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm not arguing with children. Baby, I said it and it is so. And that's the end of the conversation. There's no argument here. So I can't provoke you to anger in an argument when that's not how we engage. But if I'm not showing you those fruits of the Spirit, the meekness, the long suffering, if I'm not showing you that love suffers long, that love forgives, that love is kind, that love shows mercy, but when it's time to discipline or it's time to correct, I have all of that, the message I'm sending is, you don't really need grace, you just need to do better. And how many of us have been in positions in life where we don't know how to give ourselves grace? We don't know how to forgive ourselves because we made a mistake. We fell down. But the Lord said, listen, I will exalt you. You want to choose to sit there. I've already told you I want you up here. How long? But for some of us, it's been 18, 30, 40, 60 years. I think just about everybody in this room could remember that one good whooping that changed your life. We all I've had my fair share, but we all remember that one. And what's so interesting about that is the Lord says, but listen, chasten thy son while there's yet hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. Do not set your heart to put him to death. Don't break his spirit. Don't destroy that child. Let them know. My husband and I, we had this talk earlier. I said, when I discipline our children, it sounds like I use a lot of words, because before we get there, I make it very clear what's about to happen. I'm not whooping you. 5 minutes. I'm not whooping you or putting you in timeout or spanking you for writing on my wall. I'm disciplining you for dishonoring our home. Because when they're 15 or 18 and they coming in late, baby, they're not going to remember the writing on the wall. But if all your life you've heard for dishonoring my home, for dishonoring your siblings, for being disrespectful to your parent, those things they will be able to carry with them. We don't want to destroy their spirits, but that's what we do so that we can feel like good parents. Hey, listen, you got those grades up. Do we know what these children are sacrificing or doing? I, in high school, knew students who were taking illicit drugs to stay up so they could study. Parents had no idea. Went to school with kids having seizures and heart attacks because you overdosing on Adderall so you can keep a 4.0. But the parents were happy. My child has a 4.0. They got accepted to 12 colleges. They got $4 million in scholarships. But at what cost? Then we get kids in college and they can't keep up. Now they're doubting everything they've ever known. And we didn't tell them to come back to the rock. Oh, no. We told them to try harder. We didn't remind them that they were going to have to deal with things in this world. We didn't put in them the truth of the gospel. We didn't remind them that Jesus died just so they could have grace and salvation. Oh, no, we give them the gospel and beat them over the head with it. Jesus died, so you want to be out here hooking and hoeing? You want to be out here doing drugs? You want to be drunk? The reality is when we want our children to learn from our poor experiences, then we have to show them the truth of who we are. But oftentimes, our children see us now. We could tell them story after story of, oh, well, child, I used to do that, but they see us now. So what they think is, well, I mean, God spared you. I can get on out there and do it a couple times too. It sounds like a lot of fun. You got to do it. Why can't I? But the reality is we are crucified with Christ. And as we continue to crucify our flesh as parents, that's how we model that to our children. So those desires and those lusts of the world that they have, it's not going to go away simply because we say that's dangerous. When we show them how to deal with them, because we still come up with temptation. But so often, somebody will come to the door, tell them I'm not here. We just taught them how to lie. When we get to the buffet, you 3, not 5, because you're free. But then when they go to school and tell the teacher, oh, well, my mama told me I ain't have to do my homework. Now you want to beat them in front of the class, but you taught them how to lie. When you come home from work and you say, well, I know I still have these things to do before tomorrow. I need to get caught up on them, but I'm going to sit here and watch TV every single day. And then yell at your children because they come home from school. They've been there for 8 hours. Well, I don't want to do my homework. No, you're going to get up and do the homework now because I told you to. Well, what are we modeling? Our children are inherently going to want to do what we do. But see, the Lord is the perfect parent. After he chastises us, he hugs us, he loves us, he gives us grace. He reminds us that we are his. He reminds us of the promises that we have in him. He says in Galatians 5:1, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again and against in the yoke of bondage. We need to do that with our children. Hey, you made a mistake, but that was yesterday. Because when God forgives us, he wipes the slate clean. When we tell our children we forgive them till next week when they do it again. Then we beat them twice. We forgive them till next year till they do the same thing worse, and then we remind them of all their transgressions between then and now and beat them down. So what does it mean to be a good parent? We're not perfect. We can't do what the Lord does. But we can take the examples that he gives us and put aside the things of this world. We have so many young people who are like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should be friends with this person that I know takes drugs, or this person who drinks, or this person who is a homosexual. But the reality is it's not our place to judge them. Because those same friends that we can say, oh, I really like them. You met them at youth group. They listen to worship music. Those same kids having sex. Those same kids getting drunk. Those same kids are getting money from their parents to go to the mall and doing God knows what with God knows who. But because they know how to make it pretty, we want to accept them. We want our children to be with those people. And so it becomes hard for our children to understand what it means to be in this world and not of it. Because the things that we hold so tight are really all that we can see on the outside. But God judges our hearts. So I thank you for bearing with me in this. This was a hard one for me. I was really not really prepared for it. But when we get ready to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a parent? God gave his son for us. He watched him be crucified and beaten beyond recognition so that he could have a relationship with us. And he doesn't ask us to sacrifice our own for the same. But he gives them to us for a time to teach and share that message with. So I hope that as we measure who we are as parents, or our worth or our value, or even our ability as parents, we don't line it up with the measuring stick of this world, but with the truth of the gospel.